I'm going to take a couple minutes to introduce myself and kind of talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. So my name is Sarah Van Frank. I work with the City of Hamilton. I work in the Utilities Department. So then when I started with the city about 9 months ago, the goal for me was, in my position, was to come out and do things like this, to do public outreach, education, and to provide that additional knowledge to our residents about the Hamilton Municipal Utilities Department. Just as a quick side, today we are going to we have TvHAMILTON here. They're going to be filming this, so you guys are learning this, but the goal was to have this be broadcast to the greater population in Hamilton, so they would also be able to learn what you guys are learning today. So as Mr. Ogletree said, that we encourage you to ask questions, because the more questions you ask, I'm sure the people that are going to be watching this at home have those same questions. So before we get into the actual presentation today, I want to do a little quick exercise, and it's called Appliance Reliance. What do you use? So I want you to take out your paper and pencil or pen, whatever you write with, and I want you to write down the 5 appliances, or just 5 appliances that you used this morning or that you're going to use later tonight when you get home from school. Whether it's your iPod, hair dryer, toaster, computer, TV, anything like that. Any appliance that you use. While you're doing that, Mr. Fink's going to walk around and he's going to distribute the utility bill that we're going to go over today. Please don't write on it. We've been using it for all the classes, and you don't need to look at it just yet, so go ahead and focus on the 5 appliances that you use. So the goal of this exercise, as I said, is appliance reliance, is to understand that every appliance that you turn on, we rely on it. We rely on those appliances to do things for us, but relying on them to do things for us means that we have to pay for them. That costs money. So as you write down each of these appliances, there's an associated cost maybe per hour, per month, per minute that it costs to operate those. So although that you may not pay those utility bills just yet, you will eventually, and the person that does pay your utility bill right now appreciates, I'm sure, when you're able to save them a little bit of money. Does everybody have at least 5? How about somebody just raise your hand and tell me what your first one on the list was? Right here.
Curling iron.
Curling iron? Okay. In the back? Computer? Right here. A clock. Anybody else? Anybody use like a microwave, toaster, microwave? Did you use it this morning? Later today you will? Okay. So let's take a microwave for example. On this list you have all your appliances here. Now the microwave falls right about here, and it is, all of these are based in watts. Wattage hours, watts per hour. So our microwave takes 1,450 watts to operate. And if you would operate that 24 hours a day, or an hour, a solid hour, excuse me, it would cost 12 cents. So granted, you're not going to operate that microwave for a solid hour, but over a month period of time, which is what your utilities are based on, you probably will use that for about an hour. So that's 12 cents that are going to be added to your utility bill. Now let's also take a look again at the wattage. So you have watts, and that's 1,450. But as you'll notice on these utility bills, that your electric is charged to you in kilowatt hours, which is a kWh. Does anybody know how many watts it takes to make 1 kilowatt hour? Over here in the yellow? 1,000. That's correct. So you have 100 watts equals 1 kilowatt hour, 1 kilo, which is 1,000. So that's what your electric charges are based on. So the reason, again, that we wanted you guys to understand that was that everything you use, whether it's your computer, whether it's a microwave, whether it's your charger to your phone, all of those things cost money. So if you're not using them, turning them off or unplugging them makes a difference to your utility bill. So before we jump into this utility bill, I want to give you an introduction to the Hamilton utility system. It is a unique system in this area. We're the only city in the state, in the state of Ohio, that has all 4 major utilities. Those 4 major utilities are electric, gas, water, and wastewater. Typically, for those areas around here, Fairfield, Monroe, Oxford, all of those are served by Duke or by an electric co-op, which means that there are multi-million-dollar CEOs, there are stockholders that pay into those, and so that there's a true generation, a profit-making center is what those particular companies are. We, on the other hand, are not that. We are those average Joes that work in the city building and down at the garage and down at the power plant to provide reliable energy to our residents. And that's what a municipal-owned utility system is. We offer some of the lowest rates in the region. as well as being environmentally conscious. It is a goal of ours. It's a mission and a practice of ours to make sure that the energy that we're supplying to our residents is environmentally conscious, environmentally friendly, so to speak. Just quick numbers, and I think these are important to understand what it means to have low utility rates. That is in 2010, so about a year dated, but the average Hamilton resident spent $600 less, or 23% less than what other regions spent on their utility bills. So if you have family that lives in Oxford, and if they're on Duke, they would have spent, on average, about a quarter less than what an Oxford resident would have spent on their energy bills or utility bills. Now, that all combined, if you could combine that in savings for all the residents of the city of Hamilton, that's $14 million. Now, granted, not one person received that $14 million, but as a collective whole, the city of Hamilton kept $14 million in the pocketbooks of their residents, which could be spent on whether it was family trips or going down to the stadium to see the Reds play, or going out to dinner, or whatever it may be. It was spent on other items rather than a utility bill, and that's extremely important to understand. The second half of understanding municipal utility is where the energy is generated from. The energy generation for the city of Hamilton is also unique in the sense that we have 45% is renewable energy currently, and that 45% is generated by a hydroelectric plant on the Ohio River, which is in Portsmouth, Ohio area. It's about 3.5 hours from here. That plant is called the Greenup hydro plant. So that generates 45% renewable energy. Can anybody tell me what renewable energy is? Yeah, back in the back. Exactly. Absolutely. So it's renewable energy is able that you can use that energy over and over again. But why does hydroelectric energy, why is that renewable energy? Or why would water be a renewable energy? Go ahead.
Because it might never run out.
Correct. It may never run out. And also with it building a hydro plant on a river, you have a constant flow of water. So that water is always moving, which is what you want for a hydro plant. The city also has a partnership with AMP, which is an organization of other municipal-owned utilities similar to the city of Hamilton. They're just a little bit smaller. So they've collected together, as well as the city, and they have invested in a new hydro plant. And this one is the Meldahl project. It's also along the Ohio River, closer to us, about an hour from here, hour and a half. And that plant, when it is finished in 2014, it will produce about 20% of our renewable energy. So add those two hydro plants up, and you get about 65% of the energy that's produced for this city is renewable. Now, that may not sound a lot or may not sound impressive, but here's just an example. The city of, a couple of other cities in Ohio have goals, ambitious goals, to be fully renewable energy, 100% renewable. No, let's take a step back. Let's say like 30% renewable energy by 2020. So that's 8 years from now. So they want to be 30% renewable energy by 2020, but by 2014, the city of Hamilton is going to be 65% renewable energy. So we're meeting that we're meeting our renewable standards by 6 years compared to them, and about 30 to 35% more renewable energy. So at the end of the day, although those are just percentages and numbers and dates, that ultimately calculates to a less utility bill for the residents of the city of Hamilton. Some of the other projects and energy centers that we get our energy from, one is Prairie State Energy Campus. This is a 35 megawatt per day facility. It's a coal-fired power plant, state-of-the-art power plant, brand new. Recently went online, and there are a couple of unique features to this particular power plant. One being that it is built on the mouth of the coal mine. Therefore, there's no transportation cost for that coal. How many of you know that we have a power plant on 3rd Street? You guys have probably all seen it. Have you seen the big piles of black coal that sit in the front? Okay, so all that has to be trucked in. And as that's trucked in, that costs money. It costs gas, it costs the money for the employees to drive that truck. So those are all additional transportation costs that it takes for that coal to get here. With this particular Prairie State Energy Campus, we don't have those transportation costs. So ultimately, less money that has to be put into the facility means less money or more money that goes into residents' pockets because they're not paying for that on their utility bills. The last center that we have invested in is the Freemont Energy Center. This is up in Freemont, Ohio, north of here, and it is a gas-fired power plant. So this is low emissions, state-of-the-art, different in the sense that it's natural gas powered instead of coal-fired powered. These are photos of the centers that we have a stake in or own and operate, depending on which it is. This is the Freemont Energy Center. This is the gas-fired one that I was mentioning. This is the Greenup hydro plant. This is also along the Ohio River. This was built in 1982. This extends, right here is the dam. This extends out into the Ohio River. This is the river, and right here is your powerhouse. This is where your turbines are. There's 3 large turbines that sit underneath the water, that as water flows through, as the Ohio River flows through those turbines spin. They spin a generator, and then that generator is what creates electricity. That electricity is then sent out into the grid, which allows us to be 45% renewable at this time. This is the Meldahl hydro plant. Similar to Greenup, that a portion that extends out into the Ohio River was a dam that was previously built. We did not construct that, similar to Greenup. That was built by the Army Corps of Engineers in like the early 60s, I believe. Since then, we have, since this photo was taken actually, we have excavated all of this, and we have dug a massive hole into the earth. And it goes, I believe, 150, 200 feet down. What they did, and that expands 3 football fields wide. I mean, it is just a huge, huge hole. So they had to dig all the way down to the bedrock. Once they were down to bedrock, they blasted the bedrock to get even deeper, and now they're constructing the powerhouse there. That powerhouse will be constructed similar to what Greenups look like, and then you'll have the 3 turbines that will sit right along the Ohio River. This is an earthen dam they had to build to block out the river as they're digging into the earth. That dam will be removed, and then water will be able to flow through those turbines, which once again creates more renewable energy for the city of Hamilton, making us 65% renewable. Last one is the Prairie State Energy Campus. This one is the coal-fired power plant, like I mentioned. The unique feature of that one being that it sits on the mouth of the coal mine. You would think that that would be a no-brainer for a power plant to be built on a coal mine, but you would be surprised that this is a relatively new concept, and the idea of eliminating those transportation costs is ideal, and it is huge. Before we move on to the sheet that's in front of you, does anybody have any questions, any thoughts, anything you'd like me to clarify before we move on to the utilities section? Can anybody tell me the number of watts it takes to make 1 kilowatt hour? You are correct. Correct. As part of, and I want you to remember that as we walk through this, because the next section is talking about units, those kilowatt hours, and the other types of units that we use to measure our gas, water, wastewater, and electric utility systems. So on the front page of the sheet that Mr. Fink handed out, this is the same sheet that I have up here. The top part just says, your customer information. It says the read date, as well as the amount that you owe. So you'll see the current charges here are $186.11. But how do we come to that amount? And that's what the purpose of this presentation is going to be. Let's move down a little bit and look at gas. Gas is the first utility that's on there. And we have gas, you have your meter number, you have your read dates, and then you kind of scroll over a little bit and you see consumption. Can anybody tell me what consumption is? How much you use. There we go. So we have consumption. So the gas consumption for this particular month by this resident, this is an actual utility bill, was what? By raise of hand, can somebody answer that question for me? If you're looking at your sheet, the consumption for gas was what number? Right here? You're correct, 74. So then we have units. So there are 74 CCF that were consumed in this particular month. But what's a CCF? What does that mean? What do those letters mean? In the back. You're correct. That's excellent. So we have 7,400 cubic feet of gas that were consumed for this particular month. And that total charge was $54.16. Let's move down to that electric. Electric, once again, you have all the same meter numbers, read dates, and then you get over to consumption. Consumption of 730. 730 what? In the back? Yes, so we had 730 kilowatt hours that were consumed for $82.89. Let's move down to water. And there are 2 important things you have to know about water and wastewater. The amount of water that you consume in any one month is the same amount of usage or consumption that you are evaluated on your wastewater. So you use, in this particular month, we used 4 CCF of water, 400 cubic feet of water. So you're also going to get billed the same amount, 400 cubic feet of water, for your wastewater. Does anybody know why that would be? why you would get charged for the same for your water and wastewater. Any thoughts? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to be plain and simple, absolutely. So the purpose of that is that how much water you draw out from a system, how much water you use, whether it's in your sink, in your dishwasher, your clothes washer, as you flush the toilet, all of that has to then be treated, which is a wastewater. That wastewater has to be treated before it goes back into the system. So you have to have an equivalent amount of water being taken in and water coming out that has been treated before it can go back into the river. So that's why we have that's why they're correlated, and that's why those charges are going to be the same. They're going to be billed, the consumption is going to be billed the same. And then you see refuge and stormwater. Refuge is a flat rate. So for this particular resident, it's $14.10. That doesn't change for them typically month to month because that's a contract the city has with Rumpke. All of you guys probably received the recycling bins at your house, right? By nodding your heads? Okay. Hopefully you're using those because that's important. But that charge is part of your refuge charge that you get, that whoever pays your bill, whether it's your parents, grandparents, or whoever you may live with, pays each month. And then stormwater. Stormwater is the last one. That's just that basic, it's a flat fee, and that is $3.60. So as I said, the total current charges for this particular bill were $186.11. We had a couple of questions earlier today. Well, what if I just pay $186? Do I need to pay that 11 cents? Yes. This bill is based on your usage. It's not a prepaid, it's not anything else. So when you receive this bill, it's required that you then write a check or pay with your debit card, all of that. And granted, I know that you guys don't pay this bill right now, and I hope you don't have to pay this bill right now. But when you do have to pay it, you need to understand where your money goes. Understanding how your utility bill operates and how it's calculated, it gives you a better knowledge of where your money goes. If you flip over to the backside, the backside is a general summary, a more detailed summary, excuse me. And if you look on the right-hand side, you're going to see a bunch of different riders. Well, what's a rider? Those riders are monthly charges that are based on your usage, and those are able to collect various expenses by the utility. And I think there are two important things you understand. One, which is that second bullet point, each utility has associated riders to collect for different expenses. So all four of those major utilities, can anybody tell me what those four major utilities were? And it's a general question, but go ahead.
Water, wastewater,
you are correct. So those are the four. So each of those four have different riders that are associated with that particular utility. Now, the other part that you understand is that all of those riders, or almost all those riders, are based on usage. So it's based on a percentage of your usage is how those riders are calculated. So if you use less, then your rider expenses, those charges that are added to your bill, are going to be less. Can anybody tell me where rider comes from, or why is that attached to a bill? How does that, why do we call it a rider? We know what it is. It's that extra expense, but why do we call it a rider? Anybody know? Anybody got a guess? Yeah. Goes with the bill, but is it like minus your bill? Like, do you take all those charges away? So they're in addition. So it's on top of. So it rides on top of your utility bill, and that's why it's called a rider. Because it sits on top of your basic charges that you get charged each month. We're going to first go through the electric portion. That's the top portion of on the back side. And that middle section talks about your basic charges and your energy charges. So this is just, the basic charges is that customer service charge. Can anybody tell me what that customer service charge is? Correct, so $4.44. That charge never changes. And the reason that never changes is that's a fee that we're able to charge for, whether it's paper to print your bill, or if it's different things like, we have a customer service center. And to make sure that we have people that can staff that and can provide assistance to residents that call in, we're able to charge that so we can fund those types of things. Then you have your energy charges. So we talked about 730 kilowatt hours was the total consumption for this particular month. Can anybody tell me what the cost per kilowatt hour is, though? So you know what your total consumption is, but how do we get that charge? How do we get that final amount that's charged in electric? What's that cost per kilowatt hour that makes all that happen? So it's on your bill, underneath energy charges, cost per kilowatt hour. Do you have your hand up? You're correct, 8.1 cents. So you're going to take that 730 kilowatt hours times 8.1 cents, and that's how you get your $59 $1,000,000.13. And that's just your energy charges. That doesn't include any of the riders. That doesn't include customer service charges. So we jump over to the second section of electric. And this is where your riders come into play. The first one is rider EDCA. That's an economic development rider. There are quite a few riders that are associated with each of these. And like I said, the reason for those is that we're able to charge back to our residents so that we can recoup some of the costs that we have for doing different projects. Has anybody heard of the East Side Corridor project the city has started, or they're going to start working on? You have. It's excellent. For those that haven't, what it is that they are going to start burying all of the electric lines that are on High Street from MLK to Route 4. The purpose of that is just to beautify the area. So that area will soon look like Washington Boulevard or Neelan Boulevard, where all of the lines are buried underneath and all you see are street lights. So the purpose of that, it's a more inviting entrance into our town, and hopefully will generate some economic development, some businesses that want to come in because they see how beautiful it is that we invest in our city. And that's ideal for a lot of businesses that want to come into the city of Hamilton. So that's where that rider comes in. And for this particular resident, it was 91 cents that month that they were charged. Let's go down to rider A. Does everybody see where I'm at on the rider A and all the riders there? Just nod your heads. Cool. Okay. So we have power cost adjustment. You'll see that our flat rate, who said 8 cents? You did. What was your name? Zoe? Okay. So Zoe pointed out that the cost per kilowatt hour is 8.1 cents. That's a flat rate. That rate typically does not change, but maybe on a yearly basis when we reevaluate the market, we talk with the consultants and we figure out, do we need to adjust? So instead of having to pass ordinances through city council to get all of that changed, we have a rider A, a power cost adjustment rider that allows us to charge more to our residents or charge not any additional to our residents to recover some of the costs that it takes to purchase power. So for this particular month, it was an additional almost 2 cents extra on that 730 kilowatt hours, which added out to about $13.85. And the purpose of that is that right now, it costs us more than 8 cents per kilowatt hour to buy electricity off the grid. So when we buy it off the grid, it's going to cost more to us, and so we want to make sure that we're recouping, that the utilities isn't losing money, but isn't making money either. We just want to stay even, and that's our goal as a municipal-owned utility, to stay even and to not go under or not go over. So the total electric charges, which is your basic charges, your energy charges, all of your riders, comes out to what? Can anybody tell me or find that on the bill? Yeah, right here. $63.57. Close. That is your energy and your basic charges. If you go one more over, you want the total electric bill. Right here. $82.89. Yep, exactly. So $82.88. That's a lot of money, but that's just one portion. That's just one utility of this bill. Let's move on to, before we do that, these are the different types of riders. We talked about a few of them. Not all of these are applied to every bill. Not all of these are applied to the same bill every month. Depending on what's going on in the city, we've passed these before, and then this allows us to apply these to utility bills to recoup costs that we have as a municipal-owned utility. Gas usage is that middle section. So gas, as we said, was in 100 cubic feet is the measurement, the unit. So we used 74 units. Can anybody tell me what the cost per CCF was for this particular, or for our gas? Anybody find it? We have, underneath the gas section, you have customer charge, which is a certain amount. You have units 1 to 74, and then you have a cost per CCF. Anybody tell me what that cost is? In the back? 56.1 cents. You are correct. So, once again, you're going to take that 56.1 cents, multiply it by 74, and that's where you're getting your 41.51. And that is just your usage charge for gas. We add in another customer service charge, $7. And that customer service charge is the same as it was for electric, same purpose of having it there. Here you're also going to see gas cost recovery and then a Rider C. Rider C for gas right now is a natural gas residential service line maintenance rider. This is to replace equipment within the gas utility, and that's why this is applied to this particular resident for this month. So the total gas charge is $54.16. So right now, just two utilities, we're up to about $130, $140. Next, we have water, and wastewater. Like I said, these are directly correlated. You use 4 CCF of water, you're going to be charged 4 CCF for wastewater. Does anybody remember why? What I mentioned, why these two are correlated? Yeah. But why do you have to? Yes, there we go, the treatment of it. So if you take out 4 CCF of water, 400 cubic feet of water, you have to treat 400 cubic feet of water. Or the city has to treat that. So we charge you to treat that. So we have a cost per CCF of water of $2.62. So you're multiplying that by 4, and you're getting $10.48, which is going to be your water charges. Your wastewater, similar thing, 4 CCF times your cost per CCF, and then you're going to get $20.88. So all of that combined then is $186.11 due on your due date. For this one, it was March 21st. So all $186.11, not $185 or $186. $186.11 is due on March 21st. The riders that are associated with water and wastewater, you'll notice, and you may have noticed on the other ones, that they were an unfunded governmental and regulatory mandates water utility adjustment or a wastewater utility adjustment. Can anybody tell me what unfunded means, or what it would mean in an application here? Yeah. Correct. But who would not be paying for it in this instance? If it's unfunded governmental and regulatory mandates. Yeah. Correct. So the government has certain regulations, certain stipulations that a municipal-owned utility has to abide by. But they're not going to pay for us to implement those regulations or implement those policies. And this is where we're able to, by law, to recoup some of those monies by adding a rider to a utility bill. Before we move on to the next session, does anybody have any questions? Again, I want to make sure you guys, this is a lot of material, but it's important to at least grasp where you can find the information on here and slowly start to understand it. Because eventually, in maybe 6 or 7 years, you're going to be paying one of these, and we want to hope that you understand where your money's going, but also are there ways to save? Any questions? Well, I will pass it off to Mr. Fink, who's going to talk about how much does it cost to be bright.
We're going to do a little mystery investigation here, and in a second we'll have a screen that I'll be asking you to look at. Just want to build on what Ms. Van Frank just said. We hope that you'll go home and ask your parents to get a look at their utility bill, which will look just like the one you just had, and together with your parents you can analyze what you're paying for electricity, gas, wastewater, and so on, and decide, are there some places that maybe we can make some changes that would reduce the costs on those bills. So we're really hopeful that this isn't just a quick exercise that you'll forget, but that you'll go back and really look at your own family's bills. Let's talk a couple of minutes so you get a feel for what energy costs and what savings are possible by talking about the case of the 65-watt light bulb. And here's the mystery. How much does it cost, is the question, to keep a 65-watt light bulb on for a full month? Sometimes my wife and I visit friends, and we walk around and we notice that there's lights on in all of the rooms, even though there's nobody in the rooms. They're just burning the lights because nobody has taken the effort to shut the lights down. For example, in this building, it's been designed so that near the windows, there's less electricity being used. If no one's in a classroom, the lights go off. That all results in savings. So I was curious, how much, if I just had a light bulb that said 65 watts on it, I'm sure you've seen them in the store, the incandescent kind, how much does it cost if I were too lazy to shut the light off? And so I wanted you to get a sense of how you can calculate that amount. So if the light bulb says 65 watts, that means it uses 65 watts in 1 hour, or 65 watt hours. That's just based on what the appliance, or the bulb in this case, has written on it. Earlier you had a whole table that Ms. Van Frank showed you of how much a microwave uses and so on. It would be the same calculation. So let's look at the second line under solution. Those 65 watt hours I multiplied times 24. Why did I do that? 24 hours in one day, and all I had was 1 hour. So I multiplied 65, thank you, times 24, and got 1,560 watt hours that were used in one day. But I didn't stop there. I took the 1560 and I multiplied it times 31. Who can tell me why I would have done that? 31 days in the month, because we have to keep building this. And that came to a whopping 48,360 watt hours. That's a number that's too big to use, but we earlier, you guys understood that a kWh stands for kilo, and that means 1,000. Since there are 1,000 watt hours in one kWh, I took the 48,360 and divided it by 1,000 and got 48.36 kilowatt hours, which would be on my bill. That would be part of the 730 kWh that was on the bill that you were looking at. So the last piece of the puzzle now is how much does it cost to use 48.36 kWh? And you saw on the bill, on the calculation in your bill, it was around 88 cents, 8.1 cents, I think. I rounded it up so because there are riders, as we learned. So I figured it's about 10 cents a kWh. So leaving that light bulb on for a month without shutting it off at only 65 watts, which is not a lot of light, was going to cost $4.84. So here's the end of the story. What else could you do with $4.84? You can't spend the same dollar twice. If you spend it on electricity for that light bulb, that means you can't buy what? What would be some things you couldn't buy? Or things you could buy if you saved it? Gum? Gum. You could buy a lot of gum for $4.84. Yes, sir? Candy. What about, Ms. Van Frank has encouraged us to think about iTunes. How many iTunes can you buy? I don't buy iTunes. So you could probably buy like 4 songs, which might provide a little more enjoyment than lighting a room with 65 watts that nobody was in, right? Anything else anybody might use? Well, let me ask you this one other question. Let's say I did this for 12 months, for a whole year. Anybody do some quick math estimation? How much could I save by shutting that light off? This is, of course, assuming we never have it on, but let's assume that. Let's assume nobody ever uses this room and we just didn't turn the light off. About $60, which is a whole lot of iTunes. So I think you can see there's some real advantages, and we're going to talk in a few minutes here of ways that you can, after you sit down with your family and talk about your bill, think about ways that you could drive those numbers down and have some savings that you wouldn't have had otherwise. I know Miss Husselman's in the room here. She's been working hard on the recycling program that we see you're doing, and that's going to save the school district a lot of money. There are lots of ways to save funds and to have them available for other things, and that's why we wanted to make sure you knew how to read these bills intelligently.
Thanks, Joel. So the last part that we have is we're going to talk about some energy savings tips. What can you do tonight when you get home? Because obviously this is a lot of information, and these are a lot of numbers, and sometimes numbers can be dry and boring, and how do you even apply them to really understanding what you're doing at your home? But I hope you've been able to kind of grasp that today, that by every appliance that you turn on, you're using some type of money. So these energy savings tips are something that the city put together, and the purpose of these was that we would be able to pass these out to residents, and when I come into schools, to pass them out to students and teachers. And there were just a few things, 30 actually, that you could do, that low-hanging fruit, so to speak, that would allow you to save on your utility bills. Not necessarily save you, but save your parents, and ultimately saving your parents or your grandparents or whoever pays your utility bill money, which then hopefully kind of goes back into your pocket by doing fun things. Like I said, going down to the Reds game, or going to see a show, or going to a movie or something like that. And that's kind of the whole purpose, is being able to lower your utility bills, to use those funds and that money for something more fun, to do something together as a family or as with your brothers and sisters. So how many of you, as we start on this, how many of you have a cell phone? So the majority of you. How many of you charged that cell phone last night? And how many of you unplugged that cell phone this morning? How many of you left that charger plugged in? Okay, if you felt that charger, it'd probably be pretty warm. It would have a lot of heat that it generated. That heat is the energy. That heat is that electricity that phone charger is using. But that phone charger is not plugged into anything besides the wall. So it's drawing electricity, creating that heat energy, but it's not going anywhere. There's no use to it. But it's costing the utility payers money. It's costing your parents, your grandparents, whoever pays your utility bill, it's costing them money. So all you got to do is unplug it. It's easy. So unplug your phone, unplug the charger, done deal. You're not spending that money anymore. Another one, turn off any appliances. As Mr. Fink just said, turning off a light saves money. It may be pennies on a dollar, but those pennies on a dollar eventually will add up to other things. Another one, have your parents check the filters on your appliances. Your fridge, for example, has a filter on the back and on the front. If those are clogged with any type of dust or a lint buildup or anything like that, it's going to make that appliance less efficient. It means that it has to draw more energy to keep the food cool that's in that refrigerator. How about washing your clothes in cold water? What's the difference of washing them in cold water and hot water? Like, why would there be a savings there? Yeah, anybody? The water uses energy to heat it up. There you go. Okay. So the hot water needs energy to heat it up, which means you're heating up the water, so that takes energy, and then you're also taking energy to wash your clothes. So why don't we eliminate one of those and just wash your clothes in cold water? Companies now make detergents specific to cold water, and by washing them in that, it doesn't get them any cleaner or any less clean. It just means that you're saving energy by washing it in cold water. Another one is the lint filter in your dryer. Kind of twofold on this one. One, it's a fire hazard to not have your lint filter cleaned out. Having that lint build up can ultimately be a fire hazard and cause a fire in your dryer. Not a cool thing. But two, that by having that lint filter almost full with all of that lint from your clothes, the dryer has to work even harder, similar to your refrigerator, work even harder to dry your clothes. So by clearing that out, it's going to take less time and less energy to dry your clothes. Or even better yet, hang them outside during the summer, or hang them on a drying rack during the winter. It may take a little bit longer, but you used no energy whatsoever to dry your clothes. So once again, you're saving a ton of money. So there's 30 tips on this sheet. I want you to go home, talk to your parents, about these types of things, because some of this stuff they're going to need to do because it is their home or whoever you do live with. But other things that you can do, like I said, unplugging your phone charger, or turning off the lights when you leave a room, turning off your TV. And the last thing I want to leave you with, and I know I may sound super old when I say this, and I don't know if you consider me old or not, but getting outside. When you go outside, you don't spend any money on electricity on the inside. Go outside. Go ride your bike, go walk in the neighborhood, go walk with your parents or your grandparents. Just enjoy the outside. It's been gorgeous here, and that costs absolutely nothing. It's free entertainment. What's better than that? So, thanks everyone. I appreciate it.